Hi guys, and welcome back to the Confidence Show. I am delighted to welcome another guest today. We have got Katie, the founder of the Happiness Firm, with us. Katie is a coach who provides practical wellness solutions to busy people. She believes that the definition of wellness has become skewed slightly through social media and that busy people feel alienated from the world of self-care. Katie breaks it all down and shows you that wellness is a lot easier to achieve than we think. Having worked in busy industries such as TV production and with the police, Katie knows how challenging and exhausting it can be to look after yourself when trying to build a career. And she bases a lot of her strategies on her own experiences. Welcome, Katie. It's so lovely to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, it's great. So let's just go straight into it. Why did you get into coaching? Kind of what made you start coaching? What made you start your own business and move from those really hectic, busy environments to having your own business?
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one where I had got out of the police in January 2020, or January, February, and I just wasn't well. I wasn't happy. I'd been signed off for depression while I was there, and I was building myself back up from scratch. And I wanted to work for myself for years, but I just never knew what doing. And I got a new job and I started it in March 2020. It was just like a filler kind of admin job. I was like, okay, this is where I can just sort of set myself up. I'll just figure out what's happening. And then 2 weeks after I started, the pandemic hit. Everyone looked down and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. As a lot of people did. And I was really nervous. You know, these people had no loyalties to me and I was too early to be on the furlough scheme. It was too close to the pay gap thing. So I was like, I'm going to get fired. Like, I don't know. And the only jobs there was no jobs going out was there apart from working at a supermarket. So I thought, okay, let's just take it step by step. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to try and figure it out and we'll just go from there. So I started doing a load of courses and they were paying me, you know, for now, because we all thought it was like 2 weeks long, didn't we? And I stumbled on this life coaching course and I don't want to sound cringy, but you know, when you just go, this will make sense. Like, I just felt like, oh my gosh, this is what I should be doing. And I think I did that course in about April 2020. So it'd been a few months since, you know, of building myself back up. And I was like, okay, well, you know, I'm on my journey. I think there's never an end point, but I think I can help people with something here. And I sort of niched into that kind of confidence wellness bracket. And I just wanted to make sure that it was realistic for people because we've all got different styles of what fits in with our life. And yeah, set up an Instagram and then just sort of went from there with no experience. And it's been the best thing I've done.
That's amazing. It's so good how such a difficult time really did become an amazing opportunity for you. And so many people could have seen it as like the end of the world, which I know so many of us had struggled through this period. And I don't want to take away from that. But you really used that and said, you know what, this is a good time for me to explore something new. And I know what you mean about the whole coaching thing, because as soon as I mean, I've kind of always wanted a coach since like my teens. And then when I committed to doing it and I was like, yeah, no, this is the thing, this is me. So what kind of made you focus on wellness as opposed to, as you said, you had like depression and you've talked about on your website, like having the generalized anxiety disorder. Why did you want to focus on wellness and not focus on depression specifically?
I didn't feel qualified enough fully to talk about that. And I mean, with coaching, I didn't want to overlap into the psychiatrist counseling kind of side of it because I'm just not qualified for that. And although I don't directly say I can help you with your anxiety, a lot of the stuff that I do as a coach, I mean, in wellness in general, it helps multiple areas of your life, doesn't it? And I think I always talk about my own personal experiences online because, you know, you can be struggling with anxiety, but you can still be living, you know, a successful life, and you know, you can have great relationships, but you are still struggling under the surface with it. And there's no shame from my part anyway with that. And yeah, I wanted to keep that as a part of it to help break the stigma, but I wanted to sort of focus on more of a generalized area that would help benefit those as kind of a byproduct, that kind of thing.
That's so good. That's so good. And I completely relate to you saying that as well. Like I've had anxiety for years, and so many people have said to me, like, why don't you become an anxiety coach? Why don't you focus on anxiety? And I'm like, because I don't feel qualified. Like, yeah, the journey that I've been on and how I have managed my anxiety for myself is amazing. But from a like therapy point of view, I'm not qualified to deal with that. And I feel like I feel like anxiety is such a complex thing to work through that I
Absolutely.
think you need more training than just I've lived this experience. But as you say, like the wellness stuff that you do, that can have such an impact on the way that we feel about ourselves, and that can reduce the anxiety and depression.
Yeah, definitely. I also think it's important with mental health. It can feel like it's the whole of you, can't it? You know, I instead of like I'm Katie and I have anxiety, you feel like going, "Hi, I have anxiety," straight
Mhm.
away. And I think there's so much more to us than that side of us. And I'm sure you know you're the same. With there are real positives that have come out of that. You know, just simple things like empathy and you know listening to people more. And I don't think I would be as empathetic a person or as communicative if I hadn't had anxiety problems.
Yeah, absolutely. It's get that complete like empathy, as you say. Like I've got like younger stepsisters, and we were out on Sunday and one of them couldn't come because her anxiety was so bad, and people are just like, oh well, if she comes out, like she might feel better. And I was like, in some capacity, maybe she would, but actually, I've been in the situation where people have been like, you'll be better if you go out, and I'll get out, and then I'll be so anxious. And then having to turn around and go, I can't be in this situation, I need to leave, is so much worse than having not gone out in the first place.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
like being able to understand those kind of things, and as I say, like even being able to communicate that to people now from a place of understanding is huge. And I suppose your experience helps you to kind of recognize different things in your clients as well.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think as well, rarely the thing that we're worrying about or struggling with our life is as simple as that's what it is. I'm like, okay, so what else is going on in your life right now? Because often there's, okay, well, there's a bit of that going on and that and that and that. And then I'll say to someone, right, so what have you got on your plate right now? Write it out. Just the simple things like, I've got to remember to cook dinner tonight or like, iron clothing. I don't know why that came to head, but it's all on your mind and it all like creates this big list of things. So it kind of I like to probe a bit deeper, and it might not be that your work is stressful. It could be that your grand's in hospital and you've just got too much laundry and it's overwhelming, and it all adds up. But yeah, it's about asking questions, isn't it, and
Yeah.
showing empathy for the fact that things are more complex than we think.
Absolutely. And then finding solutions from that place of having all the pieces of the puzzle and going, okay, well, it is all these things. How can we find you a solution? But how can we find you a solution that fits into what you've already got going on? Because as you say, busy people are going to get the solution of, oh, do a 3 hour morning routine or sit in the bath for an hour and be like, how am I supposed to do that?
I always say that. I'm like, if I was in the bath every time that I was stressed, I would not be out of that damn thing, you know? And I think that's the stereotype, isn't it? That self care has got to be difficult. And I'm like, it's not. I promise it's easier than we think.
Absolutely. So let's carry on with that kind of area. How do you feel like the easiest way to incorporate self-care into your life can be for busy people? Like, are there any go-to activities? Do you kind of base things on each client, or are there certain things where you're like, every single person can do this, try it out?
I think every single person could do with being more aware of themselves. I think we rarely ask ourselves, what do I need in this moment? Like what will help me right now? And we underestimate that even 10 minutes can really help you out. Like you say, I haven't got a 3 hour morning routine. I just haven't. I have never been a get up at 5 a.m. meditate person. And I have so much respect for people that do, but it's just not realistic for me. And I say, right, if waking up and going on your phone on Instagram it helps you wake up, that's fine. But when was the last time you checked who you follow? When was the last time you cultivated and unfollowed people who make you feel rubbish? Because if you're starting the day looking at people who annoy you or, you know, make you compare yourself, that's not good. Whereas if you start the day with a really controlled, cultivated feed, like I have, I follow great people, you know, it really boosts you, it motivates you, and it can really turn your day around from the start. So I think it's looking more simply, where can, you know, when I grab 10 minutes, what am I doing? But can I tweak that slightly? You know, social media isn't all bad, but it can really impact how we feel. So I think it's an awareness of, how is this affecting me? You know, what will make me feel better in this moment?
Yeah, that's so true. And as you say, like, how often do we actually sit there and ask ourselves, what do I need? Or even, how can I help myself right now? Because so often, I think, especially as entrepreneurs, we're taught to kind of seek the answers from other people. It's like, this coach is doing this course, or this person's running this course, or this one's doing this program. But we don't ask ourselves first, how can I help myself? And sometimes it will be, I can help myself by investing in support, or I can help myself by going to this course. But sometimes it might be, I can help myself by going to bed 2 hours earlier tonight. And
Yeah, absolutely. Or even recognizing I'm so burnt out. I think tomorrow, because I work for myself, I'm going to take tomorrow off, you know, because I've been working really hard and I know that it will help me recharge and I'll work better on, you know, the day after and stuff. I completely agree. I think we're always quickly trying to compare ourselves and gain inspiration from other people. And then we don't really look at ourselves enough.
no, no, not at all. And on that kind of note, one thing that I saw that you mentioned the other day on social media, is the fact that we have this pressure almost, or this idea that when you start your business, you need to go all in with it. And one of the things that you mentioned was normalizing the fact that you can set up and run your business alongside your 9 to 5 whilst you're growing it. And I wanted to ask you, like, why do you think there is such a stigma attached to growing a business and running a 9 to 5? And what can we do to kind of change that?
I think it's our idea of success. We all have this, you know, stereotypical, you know, definition of success in our head, and you think, oh, someone won't want to work with me if I'm not full time in my business because that means that I'm not good enough, you know.
Mhm.
But maybe it doesn't. Maybe they'll look at you and go, wow, that's someone who is multitasking. They're juggling a job and they're running a business. I want to work with them more. So we kind of overthink what other people will think of us, and then we talk ourselves out of it. And I just, one of the things when I first started this business, I was like, I need to be transparent with people, because if they're going to trust me with what's going on in their life, I've got to be honest about what's going on in mine. And I had that filler job. I'm only just leaving it fully, literally in this week. I went part time a few months ago, but I have no shame for it because that's a whole part of the journey. And I look back and I'm like, oh, how amazing that I had a position that I was able to build a business from at the same time. Um, so yeah, I think it's the idea of what success is. Asking yourself, well, what is success to me? Does it really matter if I've got a job on the side? People got to come from somewhere. I question how people do it more when they don't talk about whether they've had another job. I'm like, so how did this work? Do you have bills to pay? Do you have a sugar daddy? Like, tell me more. Because I don't know how people do it. You know, I've got to pay rent. So it took the pressure off my business by having a job on the side at first.
That's so good. And as you say, that pressure is huge. Like, knowing that you've not got to, like, exhaust yourself with your business because your bills are being paid. It's such a, like, must be such a relief to have that there and to be able to do those things. And as you say, like, I think the important thing is being transparent. I think there is nothing worse than when people pretend to build a business and it's successful straight away when actually they have got another job on the side. And there's no shame in having both. There's absolutely no shame in it at all.
Yeah, totally. I do. I think it makes it harder to trust people. And when you are, especially with a service-based business, trust is what's gonna, you know, well, partly what's gonna get people through the door. You know, it's your personality. And I've had clients say to me, "I like how honest you are." And
Mm.
I am. Look, it gets me into trouble in my normal life sometimes, but I will never, you know, I'll always be transparent. So I think it's really key, and I think people respect you more for it. And yeah, it just, there is no shame. There is no shame having another job. I actually have always been quite proud of it because I'm like, look at me multitasking like a god.
I don't know how you manage it. It must be so, like, I think I would get to the end of the day and just be like, nah, I can't be bothered to do anything. Although, having said that, I was setting mine up when I still had my 9 to 5, like, what, 5.5 years ago. So
I think sometimes, well, you know the phrase, I don't know what the exact phrase is, but something like, if give a busy person, it's something to do and they'll get it done quicker. I think
Mm.
I found it harder when I transitioned to working less hours because there was the pressure of this is my day to do something. I have to be productive. Whereas I don't know, I'd be thinking about my business all day sat at my desk and I'd be like, this is what I'm going to do tonight. And I'd get really excited for it. And I mean, I think the hardest bit was like not having daylight to film reels and stuff like that. But I'd get really excited and I kind of got caught up in the sort of momentum of it all. So yeah, I'm glad to not be doing that now though. Fully
Yeah,
balanced, yeah.
I bet. How did you kind of come to the decision that now was the time for you to leave the full-time job or part-time job?
I accepted that there would be no perfect time. That just I feel like for a while I was probably waiting a bit. We all wait for that perfect time, you know, whether it's a sign from above or I don't know, like you just wait for something and then I don't know, I just thought, well, why not now? And just yeah, I think sometimes you've got to throw all of that passion that you have for your business, you've got to place a little bit of faith in yourself and say, I've got this far while working on another job at the same time and balancing, you know, seeing my friends. If I have more time, the things that I could achieve are amazing. And get yourself excited about that. Like going, right, you know, I'm one step closer by not working here. Just a little bit, I would say it's like 5 seconds of courage. You know, I'm going to do it and then get comfortable with that decision. I think that's what it was. There was no perfect time, but I created one.
Oh, I love that. And then I suppose like trusting yourself and trusting in your business. I mean, you've already got so much proof that it works. So, and that what you're doing works. So why would you not trust yourself to leave?
Absolutely. And knowing that imposter syndrome is going to be there, you know, knowing that the little green demons on your shoulders some days are going to go, you're rubbish and you're going to fail. And knowing to knock them off and go, no, I'm not, you know, it's all right. Like, yeah, it is the biggest plunge of faith in yourself, but it's so exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. How do you, when it comes to imposter syndrome, how do you recognize that that's the voice that's there? How do you kind of have that awareness to go, oh, this is not my voice, this is a different voice? And then what do you kind of do to change that?
Something I've got quite good at, and I encourage clients to do it as well, is catching the negative thoughts like the moment it leaves your head. And from being more aware, I noticed that it would depend on where I was in the month. And I'd be like, oh, I'm doubting myself again. I'm due on my period. And it wouldn't always be that way. Or noticing, often it's after a really busy time, isn't it? So you've had a run of like 4 busy days, and then all of a sudden you should be feeling so proud, and you are. You think, well, that's it. You're never gonna have a client again, or something like that. And it's noticing that it's often based on exhaustion or yeah, hormones where you are in your cycle, which is so annoying, but that's where it all starts with awareness, for me anyway, and that kind of has worked. And there are also there's going to be days, like I say, I'm always so realistic. There's going to be days where you slightly listen to the voice and go, oh, maybe I am, and you say, I'm going to take today, I'm going to feel sorry for myself, and then tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to smash it. Knowing that it's temporary, I think helps.
Yeah, I think that's so important that, as you say, like you take that time. I think it's important not to try and force yourself out of it, because I do think there is this whole like toxic positivity where we can try and force ourselves to feel a certain way and we can beat ourselves up if we're feeling negative. Sometimes it's all right to just sit there and be really miserable and really irritated with ourselves.
Oh my
Get it
god,
out of
yes.
our system.
This is why I'm always like, I'm going to get kicked out of the wellness world, whatever that means. Because I'm like, if you feel rubbish, just feel rubbish for a day.
Yeah.
No amount of positive thinking or pretending to yourself that you're going to feel better. There's things you can do. And I have a friend, I was speaking to her, and I was saying how I like put on something colourful often if it's a dreary day outside and I'm feeling a bit naff. I'll put on a colourful top and I'll feel better. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to have an amazing day necessarily. It just means that I'm accepting it and saying, here's a nice color. Okay, I'm going to have a rubbish day. Tomorrow will be better. Yeah, just allowing that. You're totally right.
Absolutely. There are days where I'm just like, I just can't stay, and I will like put on a sad film. I will get all the snacks and be like, do you know what? I'm just going to eat and I'm going to cry and I'm going to sleep. Tomorrow
Yeah,
will be fine.
I swear your best ideas will come out of days like that.
Yes,
I'm honestly,
normally towards the end, and then you're like, "I've got all these ideas and I wanna work," and I'll say to myself, "Right, I'm gonna take tomorrow off."
yeah.
Halfway through the day off, I'm like, "But I've got this idea now," and it's like, "Yeah, because 'cause you've given yourself space."
Exactly. You said, I don't need to put pressure on myself today. And then all of a sudden, all these creative ideas come up, and you're like, oh, okay,
Every single time.
every time.
So when it comes to the definition of wellness, you've said before that you feel like it's slightly skewed because of social media. How do you think social media has interpreted the term wellness, and how do you feel that it's alienating people?
I think busy people who have, and there's a lot of different types of busy people, but say, for example, busy corporate people or busy mums might look at some people on the internet and be like, wow, how are you meditating at 5 a.m.? Like, or they'll see these morning routines on TikTok, and you just kind of get a bit skeptical
Mm.
and go, I can't do that. And then it's that association with that must be what wellness is. You know, it's all self-care and bubble baths and sorry, face masks and stuff like that. And it's kind of about going, no, what does it mean to me? Like, what helps me recharge? And yet, like you said there, one of my ways to recharge is to sit at home on my own, watching Harry Potter with one of every single type of snack. But another type of self-care could be going out and seeing my friends for a day trip to IKEA, and that's the total opposite. And it goes back to asking yourself, what do I need in this moment? You know, there's not one single definition of it. And I think that's it. I don't think there is the definition of wellness is looking after yourself, to me anyway, in a healthy way. And that just might not look the same to everyone. And that's okay.
Yeah, it's so okay. It's so okay. And I love that you use those two different definitions because that's the same. Like some days for me, self-care is making myself get dressed, put makeup on, and leave the house because I know that I've been at home for a couple of days and my mindset is struggling with it. My anxiety is getting to the point where it's like, if I don't leave the house today, it's going to be bad. So that's a type of self-care. But then other days it's drinking 2 liters of water. Other days it's binge watching Stranger Things again.
It is, and it just depends on your lifestyle, doesn't it, as well? You know, and I think maybe people who have a busy corporate job, I can't say this is what you should be doing, but maybe they are, if they live a fast-paced life, maybe their self-care is fast-paced too. You know, maybe it's going for a run or like, yeah, going to, yeah, it's like work hard, play harder, isn't it? Going to socialize with a load of people, but it could be something else, and it just totally depends on you. And that's why I think coaches are so great because it can help you identify what you're missing, you know.
It's so hard to look at your own life and pinpoint what's going on. And I think this is why so many coaches have coaches because they understand that. Like it's very different when somebody on the outside comes in and can have like a bird's eye view and say, actually, maybe you could try this, or how would you feel about trying this, or asking the kind of questions that helps them come to the realization themselves of, oh, this is something that I never would have noticed before because I can't. What was it I read the other day? It was something to do with the reason that we can't take our own advice is because our ego is so attached to us. And
I love
it's like, yeah, it just blew my mind. I was like, that's so true. We are so connected to whatever the problem is. We can't take the advice that we best need.
Definitely. I think as well, whenever, if you like working for yourself wise, if you're ever like, oh, I wish I had a business partner, it's probably a sign that you could do with a coach.
Hmm.
Because sometimes it is that bouncing an idea off someone else, you know, and a coach can't make a decision for you, but neither can a business partner. And it's just having that different perspective. And the times where I've gone, God, I just went into business with someone. I wish I wasn't doing this fully by myself. Then I've gone, nah, you just need an outside perspective, don't you? And that's all it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Sometimes you just need to say the thing out loud to someone else. And sometimes you need a little bit of validation. But also, I feel like with coaching, although the coach doesn't necessarily give you the validation, you can self validate because you've spoken it out loud to someone. And it's so
100%.
much better.
It's just the magic of communication, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't, I completely agree. Self validation. If you're sitting in a room by yourself, it's not as easy as if you're talking to someone about it. That's what I'll ring my mum sometimes, and I feel like that's great because she will. If she tries to tell me what to do, I probably won't do it. But sometimes me just talking to her, I'll be like, "Thank you," and she's like, "I didn't say anything." I'm like, "I know."
Yeah, I know. You just listened. No,
You
my mum
just were
would be the
there.
same. My
Yeah,
mum
it's
would be the
someone
same.
holding a space for you, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and I think we disregard that so much as well, and I think sometimes, like, coaching is obviously great because you've got a, what's the word? Like, you've got, like, an outsiders, but someone that's a bit more far removed from you, so then they're not as invested in who you are. But also, if coaching isn't something that you wanna do, even just having a conversation with a friend or having a conversation with someone else in business, like, that can make a massive difference.
Yeah, we can learn a lot from people. People are fascinating. I think we forget sometimes when we get overwhelmed. We're like, it's just me and my world. And I'm like, no, you could just ask someone for advice because people love talking about their journey, right? Everyone loves talking about themselves. So I'm like, you ask someone in business who's successful for advice and say, how did you do it? They will talk for hours
Yeah.
because we're just ego. We love talking about ourselves. She says on a podcast.
Yeah, but you're the guest, you're allowed to talk all about
That's what I'm here for.
yourself. But no, that is so true, and I think, as you say, we can always feel like we're so alone and it's only us and we're the only ones experiencing it, but actually, we all experience pretty much the same kind of things, the same thoughts, the same feelings, but we just not everyone is so open and honest about it because there is, I suppose, some kind of shame attached, or there's this perception of shame being attached. I've always been very open about my anxiety because I just don't really care. Like, I just it's not
It's
something.
not a big, you're like, just in the easiest terms, it's not a big deal. It is, it's a huge deal, but it's not a big deal. But
No.
being open, I'm sure you're the same things like your stepsister. I've been the same with friends. Like I struggled with anxiety like in school.
Mm.
So then when friends from uni started to struggle with anxiety or mental health, they knew that I'd gone through something similar. So they were like, help. And
Mhm.
just that simple me not being ashamed of talking about it, open that door and help them. Just things like me saying, get a therapist. It's the best thing you will ever do.
Yeah. And it just makes other people feel less alone as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just none
We
of us.
shouldn't be ashamed. It's not a big deal.
No, it's just that thing. And I liked what you said earlier. I don't think I mentioned it, but when you said earlier, like, it's not who you are, it's just something that you have. And I think that's something important to kind of distinguish and try and separate yourself from. Because I used to feel the same, like anxiety was who I am. And then I was like, nah, not having this
Yeah.
anymore. Like, I am who I am. I have anxiety. And sometimes it's great, sometimes it's shocking, but
Yeah.
just one of those
And
things.
some days, and as well, and acknowledging that, like, you're never going to be cured. That there is no, I, I would love one. There is no cure. It's just about managing it. And like you say, sometimes are really bad, and I look back and be like, do you know what? Considering that was a bad day, I've coped really well with it. But yeah, it's kind of like if you have a hobby, so like I enjoy Zumba, but I wouldn't count Zumba as my whole personality. It's just a hobby that I have, right? And the difference is I enjoy it. I kind of see like mental health is sometimes like a pocket like that. Put it in its little box. I have anxiety, but it's not a huge part of me. It's there. Ask me about it. I'll tell you. But yeah, it's not fully me.
Yeah, absolutely. On the anxiety subject, what kind of tools have you used to help you manage it? Because as you say, there's no cure. I mean, it's just that was actually a huge shift for me, like accepting that it was never going to be a cure and it was just going to be something that was always there. And what kind of things have you used to help manage it?
I think a big switch was when I just sort of learned to be patient with myself. And a huge thing with anxiety is kind of like this feeling of like escape, like needing to escape all the time. And sometimes, like, I would try and say to myself, you can escape, but then there'd be some situations, like an airplane, you can't get on off an airplane. So instead of trying to be toxic and say, no, but it's fine, it'll be fine, just going, let's just be patient, let's take it minute by minute. That's a huge one for me. Let's take it minute by minute. Let's just, if I can get through 5 minutes, I'll be all right. If I can get myself laughing, oh my God, I swear that is like the opposite of anxiety. The moment I start laughing, all of it melts away. So, like, if I'm in a new situation, you see me absolutely howling in the corner, I'm all good. um,
Oh,
but
good.
it's a lot
I
of
never
it
even thought.
stretch. Sorry.
No, I've never thought of like that being a thing, but I suppose it's that releasing of the energy, isn't it? So you
Oh,
release the anxious and I know when I do like tapping, sometimes I'll laugh because it's the energy coming out. So it
yeah.
makes so much sense.
Yeah, fully. Just having a great conversation. And if you're with a friend, I'll be like, can you just make me laugh, please? I swear it'll help. Because yeah, and it also focuses your attention on something else, doesn't it? But it's that self-training. I think looking back to when I was like 13 and first diagnosed, I used to before phones were as good as they are, I wrote out sort of like cue cards and I wrote out my favorite quotes on them. And I had them in my bag. I've still got them somewhere. They are raggedy. And I would just look at them. So I say to people, I had a client who was like, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I just can't stop thinking. So I said, create an album on your phone
Mm.
of things that make you calm. It doesn't have to be a quote, but it could be a picture of a dog.
Mhm.
One of my favorite things to do in an evening after a busy day is to go on Instagram or TikTok and look at dogs
Yeah.
because I love them. And it's kind of saying, like, what makes me feel better? For me, visual, clearly, with those cards, but it's listening again to yourself, and just taking the pressure off. Easier said than done, but yeah,
That's such a good tip. I've got like a feedback folder, but I've never even thought of having like a calming folder. I think that's such a fantastic idea because it's something that's so easy to do. And as you say, like being able to just open it up and have a look. And I also find dogs very calming.
they're wonderful.
And I will use like social media sometimes, or I have games on my phone. So if I'm traveling like on the train, I'll sit and play games for hours because I'm not focusing on the fact that I'm traveling or I'm moving because travel's a big trigger for my anxiety, like the actual act of traveling. So I'll make sure that I've got games to play because I'm not thinking of anything else. I'm just focusing on those things. And the same will be for having those folders of like the calming stuff or looking at dogs on TikTok or whatever. It just helps to distract your brain and yeah, think differently.
Genuinely going, do I need distracting? Do I need calming right now? Or do I need to logistically like work this out? Like if it's say ahead of a journey, you might be like, okay, let me just make sure I've got all my trainings written down, or packing my bag, making sure and it's different types through the different stages of anxiety, as you go through it. Just knowing yourself again. Everyone needs to know who they are.
Know who you are, know what you need, and then honor those needs.
Magic, honestly, just magic. It's the simple things though, isn't it? I think sometimes I'm like, wellness isn't rocket science. Just listen to yourself and say, what do I need in this moment, and then do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it gets put on such like a pedestal with social media because you see all the reels and the videos and the stories or whatever, where it's like this big, like fancy, glamorous routine, or it looks a certain way, and you're just like, well, I don't have any of that. Like, I don't have incense and all these crystals. I mean, I do have a lot of crystals, but I don't have all this, or I don't have all that. Like, how can I like focus on my wellness when I need all these outside things when it's not that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I live in the city as well, and I think the city can really um everyone's stress just catches. It's nuts. You're like walking on well, when you're in rush hour and you look at everyone and you're like, oh my god, everyone, oh, who needs a hug? I wouldn't say that. That's really odd, even in the north. But you just kind of, instead of rolling with that energy, just kind of going, no, I'm gonna relax and chill out, and making your home like a haven.
Yeah, it really needs to be that sacred space, doesn't it?
Mm.
And again, like that doesn't have to mean anything fancy. That can just be like tidying your sofa or like making your bed or creating an environment that feels really nice to you.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Getting yourself a new duvet cover if you need a bit of a change.
Yeah, little things like that. Um, I have followed your content for a while. I followed you for a while, and I do love your content. But there was a reel that I watched the other day that really caught my attention because it is something that I'm a big advocate before, and we've kind of touched on it slightly when we talked about imposter syndrome. But the reel that I'm talking about was all about the way that we speak to ourselves and kind of the words that we use and what we say in our minds and the impact that can have. So can you talk a little bit more about the impact that speaking negatively to ourselves can have on both our personal and our professional lives?
Yeah, I think we are rude. We are so rude to ourselves, like so mean. And I noticed it more when I was catching friends doing it. I'm like, why are you saying that about yourself? And then you question it and you're like, they're like, oh, I don't know, but it can really tear your confidence down hugely. And I'm the same as you. I think confidence is at the heart of everything, right? If you believe in yourself, look out world, you know. And when you are constantly talking down to yourself, you can have the best intentions in the world, but if you on a day-to-day basis are saying you're awful at that, you look rubbish, how horrible. If someone was saying that in your face, you would not take it. I realized that because I used to do that, and I don't take any kind of BS. You know, I'm like, don't be mean to me. I won't take it. But then I realized that I was doing it to myself. I was like, why are you calling yourself fat every morning? Like, of course it's setting you up for a rubbish day. Of course you're like trying to cover your stomach all the time. Whereas when I switched that narrative and was like, you look great today, or congrats, you're comfy, you know, it really just started to wear away and switch that from a horrible, awful experience to a nice one, because it just damages who you are. How can you should be the person that's backing you 100%. You are meant to be your 100% cheerleader, but we're not. And I'm like, how do you expect other people to support your business idea, or how do you expect other people to give you that promotion if you don't ask for it, if you're not saying I deserve this? And I think often, particularly just as Brits, I feel like we speak so apologetically. You know, like especially conversations about money, you almost are saying, I'm so sorry that I'm asking for you for this service that I deserve. I'm providing great service, but I'm so sorry, can I have some money? And that's like the tone that it gives. It's like, stop.
It's crazy, isn't it? I don't even know where like that comes from, whether it's like the British culture thing. I mean, it comes from there, or whether it's like a being raised as a female thing. Like, it's just, it is insane the way that we talk ourselves, the way that we see, I suppose, like our parents and the people in our lives speak to themselves, and then the way that society talks about us as well, when we're faced with like images of skinny people or people that have got the perfect face, perfect body, perfect this, perfect business, perfect that. We kind of take those, they're not norms, but we take those perceptions of what is supposed to be normal, and then we apply it to ourselves and think, oh, well, actually, I don't look like that, or I don't behave like that, or my business doesn't look like that. And then, yeah, those negative words like spiral, and it is so toxic. And as you say, we've never talked to anyone else like that.
No, we act like there's one way to do everything. You know, there's one way to have relationships, there's one way to run a business. I'm like, well, no, there's not, you know. And often your best asset, in fact, I think always your best asset is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, if you're wearing that down every day, where are you going to get? No wonder you're not where you want to be, because every morning you're telling yourself you can't do it, you know, or that you don't deserve to. Friends, they'll say, why do I keep picking awful men? And I'm like, because you're accepting it. You're
Yeah.
saying I am not worthy of someone who treats me kindly, and you
Mm.
don't realize you're saying it, but you are. And it all just starts at just stop insulting yourself, and then just watch what happens.
Yeah, and I think catching that as well, isn't it? It's really having that like awareness. And I mean, I do it now, like every now and then I'll catch myself and I'll be like, why on earth are you doing that? Or why are you saying that? Like, even what was it? I was thinking something before I got on the call with us. Like before oh, I thought I was going to be late. And I was thinking in my head, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be late. I'm going to get on there and be like, oh my God, I'm such a terrible host. And then I was like, you're playing this conversation that's not going to exist because you're not going to be late, but you're telling yourself that you're a terrible host. And that's just not true. And like little things like that, and catching it and being like, no, that's ridiculous. I don't choose to subscribe to that thought.
You probably told yourself that I would hate you before we've even got talking, didn't you? You're like, oh God. But we do, we overthink ourselves into this absolute spiral, and then we wonder why we're feeling rubbish. And it's like, oh, that's my fault. And acknowledging, taking responsibility and saying, actually, I did that. You know, why are you having a bad day? You know, did someone speak to you unkindly, or did you speak unkindly to yourself?
Oh, that's such a good question to ask yourself. I like that one.
I don't even know where that came from, but it came from somewhere. But it's true, isn't it? You know?
So true. So as I said, like creating that change, the first step to changing the habit is creating that awareness around what the inner voice is saying. but how can we create awareness in a simple and easy way? Because it's taken me years to get to the point where I can catch myself immediately and go, oh no, that's not a good thought. Like, what would you say is kind of the simplest way to start creating that awareness?
I think it's working through a negative thought. So perhaps it's, you've not necessarily caught it. Okay, it's totally normal. It takes a while, doesn't it? It's an art, some would say, but it's not impossible. But it's saying, say you're having a bad day or you're feeling rubbish. And I'll say this to clients, I'm like, work through the thought. What's causing it? You know, and like I said, it might be works rubbish. That's a common one, isn't it? Works rubbish. Um, and then you work through it and work back and go, so why do I think this? What's the evidence behind it? Who told me that? And when you answer the question of who told me that, it's probably you. So it's working through that and kind of sort of goes like a funnel and going to the core of what's the worry, what's the problem. So it's after you're feeling it and maybe you have worried yourself into a spiral, and perhaps in another year you could have said, say with your example, you get to the end of the day and you're like, why am I feeling awful? I've had such a great day. And it's because you ask yourself questions and you realize that it comes down to that. You told yourself that you're an awful host. um it's kind of just questioning everything. I'm a really inquisitive person. I was always the kid that was like, why?
Yeah.
And I'm still the adult that's like, why can't I do that? And I think it is just being stubborn and saying no, and I'm gonna find out what the problem is. And I've even got my boyfriend's on it now, and he'll be like, how's your day? And say I'll go, yeah, not amazing. And he's like, what's really wrong? And I'm like, oh, okay, what is really wrong? I'm like, oh, I love it.
So
And I
good that you have that support.
yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah. Well, I'll say to him, what's really wrong? You know, and it's that goes back to that thing of, you know, I hear a lot of people when you talk about mental health say this. You ask a friend, hi, how are you? You're meeting them, and then a few minutes later, 10 minutes later, or at the end of the conversation, you ask them again how they are, because it's often there's more than we realise to talk about.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, just questioning yourself and well, not questioning yourself in a negative way, but questioning the thought, working through it in a healthy way.
Yeah.
I think it answers a lot of questions, and then you do get quicker at it, because that's kind of the thought process when you're catching a thought, isn't it? You go, oh, why did I say that?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming at it from that place of curiosity and
Mhm.
getting used to practicing that and like consciously choosing to do that. And as you say, like it does get quicker. I can do it quite quickly now, whereas it took me years before. And even now, like I have to do that. Well, whose voice is that? Like, where's that come from? And kind
And
of,
it's not an absence of having that negative voice. I'm really big on that. It's not, you can't, I just don't think you can get to a point where you will never experience negative thoughts. And again, when someone sells you that rainbow, because it's not possible. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with having those negative thoughts. It's what you do with them. Do you act on it and tell yourself you are rubbish, or do you go, no, 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 that's a false thought. That's just me overthinking. Yeah.
that's so good. So good. How can it really impact someone's life for the better when they do start to change that in a narrative?
I think cringe, but possibilities are endless. Honestly, if I hadn't started believing in myself, I would never have thought I was capable of starting a business. Probably similar with anyone, with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can do things, and I have clients that go, "I wish I had, a lifestyle like you." I'm like, look, it's not luck. I've had some lucky hands along the way. Things like the fact that the pandemic went well for me, but it, I just started believing in myself, and that's what happened. Your whole lifestyle can change. You can go from having nothing and making ends meet just as much as you can to doing what you want. Or for some people, it's traveling while they work. It's when I ask people, if you could wave a magic wand right now, what would your life look like? Be as unrealistic as you want. Tell me. I'm your fairy godmother, and then they'll tell me something, and I'm like, you could do that if you want. you know I can't bring back the dead, but apart from that, I think you can do a lot of things. When people say I want to be financially independent, that's okay. If you feel stuck right now, we can work on that. But I just think the possibilities are honestly endless. There's so many things that you can do, and it will just, you walk differently, you talk differently. It's just nice. It's just so freeing.
It is. It's so, so freeing. That self-belief is really like it is everything. And the thing is, not everyone is going to believe in you. I remember when I wanted to become a coach, my ex was like, "You can't become a life coach." I was like,
Excuse
"What?"
me.
And he's like, "No." And even when I said about like doing the confidence coaching, my dad was like, "You can't confidence coach people," because he hadn't seen like the massive transformation that I'd had in my life. And it's just like nobody else, like nobody is going to believe in you in the way that you can create the belief in yourself. And
100.
you just like it's just such an important thing. Yet people don't focus on it enough because they focus, as we spoke about earlier, like giving their power away to other people and trying to find other people to believe in them. And it's
Yeah.
just like it's just not going to work that way. It might work for a little while, it might be sustainable for a few months or a couple of years, but ultimately you have to be the one that says, I can do absolutely anything I want to do.
Yeah, I was the same. I was shocked when people went screaming for joy for me. I was like, what? Why are we all not on board with this train? Not thinking of their perspective of me just being an absolute madhead doing something I've never done before, not knowing anyone who's even started a business. Like my dad, my parents were like, no,
Yeah.
please don't do that. But I went, I can and I'll show you.
And it's so far out of their comfort zones. So they think about it in the perspective of, oh my God, I could never do that. So then it's this scary thing. Whereas
That's
us
it.
ourselves, yeah, like we can make our own decisions.
They are projecting 100. When people say you can't do something, I'm like, no, you're saying that you can't do it. And a lot of it's generational with parents. Like mine, no way. They would not have, they've never even blinked, they've not thought about starting a business. It just wasn't the done thing, you know? But I mean, they could have done it if they'd wanted to, if they believed in themselves. But yeah, I mean, they're on board with it now. So
I bet they are.
yeah, when the money comes into the bank account, they're like, oh, actually, maybe she's doing all right.
Maybe your little business is okay now.
And do you know what? It's more the happiness, isn't it? The joy. So I'm kind of prove them wrong. If people don't believe in you, that's cool. Prove them wrong.
Yeah, always. I like to use that fuel and be I hate being told what to do. If I'm told I can't do something, I'm like, just watch me. I'm gonna do it just to prove you wrong.
And it's fine to use that energy for that. Like, just do it and prove them wrong.
Absolutely, absolutely. So whether we run our business or we have a career like we talked about before, or we're a parent, it can be a real challenge to carve out time for self-care or to relax and unwind and to kind of focus on that wellness aspect. How can we encourage ourselves to prioritize us when we have so much else going on?
Realizing that if you don't look after yourself, then you won't be able to look after the people around you, I think is a big one, especially for parents. I'm like, if you aren't feeling your best, there's only so long you can, you know, look after people without burning out. And I think a lot of the time, especially in relationships, especially at the start, people will prioritize their partner, you know, prioritize this relationship, and don't honor themselves. I actually saw a TikTok earlier today of this woman saying, "What do you guys do when your partner is your best friend and they're not there? You know, you finish work early." I was thinking, I think a lot of people relate to that. Um, and the simple thing is, again, easier said than done, but it's figuring out what makes you happy. And it could be, and this goes back to the time thing of, it could just be putting something on the TV that you like, that no one else in your household likes the genre of, or something like that. Or cooking something. My boyfriend doesn't like eggs. I love an omelette. Love an omelette. So when he's not here because he's working or something, I'll often have an omelette, because it makes me happy. And it's, my point is, it's the simple joys, and realizing what are the little things that make you happy. What is your love language? You know, mine's words of affirmation. So if I speak nicely to myself, of course I'm going to feel better. If yours is, you know, gift giving, get yourself a little chocolate bar from the shop. You know, show yourself love and show yourself that you are worthy of receiving it as well. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be taking an hour's bath or booking a trip to Bali or something. It can just be really small, and being reflective on how you treat yourself
Yeah.
opens a lot of doors, I think.
Absolutely. And I really liked what you say as well, like coming to that realization that the more you look after yourself, the more you're going to be able to look after the people around you. The better you can show up in your relationships, the better conversations you can have, the more productive you're going to be. All of that comes from you putting yourself first and making that little space of time for wellness. And as you say, it doesn't have to be hours and hours. It can just be like 10 minutes. It could be a 10-minute scroll on TikTok on the like wellness section, just seeing all the positive stuff come up.
I don't think we see wellness as productive. That's interesting you say that about productivity, because I just don't think people are like, no, 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 it's not a priority. I mean, but it is. But it is. Like, you wouldn't miss a half an hour meeting with your boss. So why are you missing that half an hour with yourself? Which
Mm.
is going to make you feel better? Like, book it in. I'm like, this is my time, you know? Yeah.
I always recognize it interesting what you're saying about the love languages as well. Like we think about love languages with other people, but we have to focus on ourselves as well. Like my love languages are my top two are like quality time and physical touch. So I'm like a bath for me is huge. Taking myself out for dinner is huge. It makes me like feel good about myself. And I always notice if my mindset's dipping or if I'm feeling frustrated or I'm not feeling so good, it's because I haven't been making time for those things. And when I do make time for those things, I am so much more productive because I have more to give.
Yeah, so much more energy,
Mhm.
so much more like inspiration. Like we said about pausing when when you're having a busy day and you get inspiration. It's the same if you look after yourself, just in really simple ways. I always say my simplest one is buying myself coffee. I love buying myself coffee, and I'm like, look, for £2.50, I think that's quite a good little gift, Or flowers. I always buy myself flowers.
Nice. I'd love
Yeah.
to get £2.50 coffee down here.
Yeah, to be fair, we're lucky up here for £2.50 these days, yeah.
Whereabouts are you based?
I'm in Manchester,
Oh, okay.
but I'm not Mancunian. I don't, well, I wish I was. I don't sound Mancunian.
No, I like Manchester though. I went there once. It was very nice.
It's wonderful.
um, so you've obviously achieved a lot so far in life and in particular since starting your business a couple of years ago. What really gave you the confidence to take the action to become the coach and start your own business? Because it is such a scary thing to do, especially at the point in time that you did start the business.
Yeah, it was scary, but I think there's this mindset of doing it for your future self.
Mm.
There's a lot of like, do it for your past self. I'm like, what about doing it for your future self? What how do you want your life to look? And I think the moment that you question, is this it? In any situation, in a job, in a relationship, in a lifestyle, if you think, is this it? Then that's the sign that you should do something about it. And just, I just couldn't see in any different job role that I'd had, I couldn't see a future for myself. And I was just kind of questioned, what do I want to do? And then did it for my future self. And when you think, oh, I'm so glad I started that a year ago, because the present me is glad I did that. Or, different actions. I'm so glad I did that on Monday because it makes my life easier. Do stuff for your future self. Make your life so wonderful. Um, I think that was the key mindset change that I had, and realizing that I was worthy of it as well. I think as women, often we can be called self-righteous for wanting certain things. I certainly have. But I'm like, no, I think everyone can do what they want, but I know my worth and my value, and I know that I want to do that in my future, and I will do whatever I can to get there.
Oh, I love it. I love that you mentioned the worth piece as well, because I think so many of us have these big dreams or these things we want to achieve or the stuff that we want to go after, but then there's a part of us that goes, who am I to do that? Like I'm not worthy of that because of the way that society's made us feel or because of comments from our friends or family or not intentionally, of course, but those kind of things can massively impact us. And I completely agree with you. Like we are worthy of what we want.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to focus on your confidence and your self-worth. Because if you base it in other people, if we'd listened to the people who doubted us at the start of our journeys, neither of us would be doing this.
No.
That's what I find nuts. I'm like, trust your gut. Like, Other people are going to have different opinions. That's fine. But the most important thing is your gut. And then at least you know you went for it. I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? Your business fails and you get another job. Okay,
Yeah,
it
and
won't.
in a
But
different direction. Yeah, that's fine. And I think everyone is going to have different opinions, and those opinions are based on their life. Those opinions are based on their experiences, what's happened to them in their like previous life, like how people have made them feel. And their opinions aren't really any of our business because we haven't lived those same experiences.
100%. Yeah, I really like that.
Mm. So what would your advice be for anyone wanting to improve the wellness part of their lives? What kind of action or change could they take today?
Um, I would say focusing on being patient with yourself is huge. Saying, look, I want to make a change. It's not going to happen overnight, because otherwise, if you think it's going to happen overnight, you'll give up the next day. Um, and honing in on that self-love. Maybe do a love languages quiz. If someone's listening and they've not done it and think, oh, maybe I need to do that, do one. Figure out how you can show your self-love, and find time to do that. Sure, not in a Molly May way. We've all got 24 hours in a day, but I'm sure you've got 10 minutes. Somewhere, so once a week, 10 minutes for something, and say to yourself, I'm going to book out that as if I would a meeting, and sort of showing that commitment to yourself. So it's kind of identifying how you want to be loved by yourself, and then figuring out when, and then actually doing it. Because that's how you build a habit. And I think self-care is a habit, you
Mhm.
know. So yeah, acknowledging it takes time, and not being afraid to ask for help as well. There's people like you and me, we do this for a reason. I like to think we're all right at it.
Me
So
too.
just kind of saying, I'm not afraid to ask for help, and just take an action. Don't wait to do something, just do it.
I love that. What a wonderful way to end. Thank you so, so much for being here. This has been so much fun. I've loved every minute of it, and I can't wait to go back and edit and just listen to it all over again. Before we go, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I am the happiness firm pretty much everywhere: Instagram, TikTok. My website's thehappinessfirm.co.uk. That's me. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so, so much. And I will see you guys in the next one.